Rolling Hills, there was a well-known legend about a magical tree that granted wishes. This tree, called the wish oak, was said to bloom only once every 100 years and only under a full moon. Lila, a young girl with a heart full of dreams, had always believed in the legend. As the centennial full moon approached, she eagerly prepared to visit the wish oak. With a deep breath and a hopeful heart, she walked to the ancient tree as the moonlight bathed its gnarled branches. Under the moon's silver glow, the wish oak began to shimmer and bloom, its leaves glistening like stars. Lila stood in awe and whispered her wish. She wanted her village to always be happy and prosperous. As she spoke, a soft breeze rustled through the tree's leaves, and the tree seemed to glow even brighter. In the following months, something remarkable happened. The village experienced a string of good fortune. The fields yielded abundant crops, the villagers found new sources of joy, and the community grew closer than ever. Lila's wish had come true, not by changing the world, but by inspiring the villagers to cherish and support each other more deeply. Years later, Lila would tell the story of the wish oak, not as a tale of magic, but as a reminder of the power of hope and kindness. Small village nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, there was an old lighthouse that had long been abandoned. Its beacon had stopped shining decades ago, and the villagers had come to view it as a relic of the past. But the lighthouse still stood tall, its white paint peeling and its glass lens clouded with age. One stormy night, a young woman named Eliza found herself stranded near the lighthouse. Her car had broken down on a deserted road, and as the wind howled and rain battered the ground, she sought shelter in the old structure. Inside, she discovered a dusty, cobweb-filled interior, but the sight of the ancient lantern at the top intrigued her. Eliza climbed the spiral staircase, her footsteps echoing through the empty tower. At the top, she found the lantern chamber, where she noticed a small, tarnished key lying on the floor. Curiosity got the better of her, and she picked it up, noticing it had an inscription, "For those who guide." The storm continued to rage outside, and Eliza, driven by a sudden impulse, found a hidden compartment in the wall that the key fit. Inside was an old journal and a note that read, "If you find this, the lighthouse still has one last light to give. Light it to guide the lost." Feeling both a sense of duty and wonder, Eliza managed to clean the lens and restart the old mechanisms. As she worked, the storm began to subside, and the lighthouse's beacon flickered to life, cutting through the darkness. For the first time in decades, its light shone brightly, guiding a passing ship away from danger. The next morning, the storm had cleared, and Eliza was greeted by grateful sailors who had been saved from disaster. The lighthouse, though still old and worn, was once again a symbol of hope and guidance. Eliza, having embraced her unexpected role, left the village with a sense of accomplishment, knowing she had revived the last light of the lighthouse, and from that day on, the villagers looked upon the lighthouse not as a relic, but. When I think back to those days, it's almost like looking through a fogged-up mirror. The events seem distant, blurred, but the sharp pain remains vividly clear. My name is Daniel Blake, and this is the story of how my life unraveled in the most unexpected of ways. It all started with Emma, my wife of 7 years. Emma was everything I had ever dreamed of, beautiful, intelligent, and kind-hearted. We had built a life together in our cozy house in the suburbs. Our days were filled with routine, but it was a routine we both cherished. Emma worked as a school teacher, and I was a software engineer. Life was predictable, but it was our kind of predictable. Things began to change when Emma met a new colleague at her school, a man named Robert Turner. Robert was charming and charismatic, the kind of person who could light up a room with his presence. Emma spoke of him often, and while I initially thought little of it, there was something about the way she spoke that left me uneasy. At first, I brushed it off. Emma had always had friends, and I trusted her implicitly. But as the weeks passed, I noticed small changes. She became more distant, her smile less frequent. Our evenings together, once filled with conversation and laughter, grew quiet. I attributed it to stress from work, a notion that I clung to desperately. One chilly autumn evening, after a particularly long day at work, I came home early to surprise Emma. I wanted to take her out for dinner, something to break the monotony and rekindle our connection. But as I entered the house, I noticed something strange, a faint, unfamiliar scent in the air, like a hint of perfume. Emma was in the kitchen, her back to me as she chopped vegetables. I called out, and she turned around with a start, her cheeks flushing slightly. "Daniel, you're home early," she said, her voice a bit too cheerful. "Surprise," I replied, forcing a smile. I thought we could have a nice dinner together. Emma's demeanor shifted. Oh, I was actually.
Was a cool autumn evening when I, James Thornton, first sensed something was amiss. The golden leaves had begun to fall, and a crisp breeze signaled the end of another year. My wife, Emily, and I had always loved this time of year. We would stroll through the park, hand in hand, savoring the tranquility and the beauty of our shared moments. But that evening, as I settled into the armchair by the fireplace, I could not shake the feeling of unease that had been growing over the past few months.